felt the call to medicine around 10th grade. I say call because it really was a call that I felt from God. My father worked in a stone quarry all of his life. None of my siblings or extended family had any sort of college education. But somehow, around 10th grade, every time I would drive by a hospital, I felt a pull to be inside that place helping people. It wasn't until a number of years later that call really became solid. With my conservative Mennonite background, it wasn't really appropriate to go to college, so I needed to work through that with my parents. And eventually they graciously saw that was what God was calling me to do. And at the time, I was a school teacher, Anchor Christian School, my home community, Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. I was standing in the back of my classroom with my co-teacher sweeping floors, because we sort of acted as a janitor at the end of the day as well. And he was talking about how we seem to have given up all of the professions to the secular world. And why can't we actually be involved in the professions as Christians? That was a little radical from my conservative Mennonite background, but in that moment, it felt like God was actually saying, Joel, this is what I want you to do with your life. At the time, I don't think I realized how difficult the journey would be. I needed to find a wife who somehow agreed with this calling. And so I met Luann somewhere around the early 1990s, and her dream had been to marry someone and move to the hills of West Virginia and raise a large family. We didn't know at the time that we would not be able to have children. We would be infertile. She had grown up in a Mennonite community as well. Prior to her teaching school for 5 years, she worked in a chicken house, so she knew what it was to do farming for 2 years. But early in our relationship, it became clear that God was asking us to join together in the covenant of sacred marriage for the rest of our lives. And after doing a little wooing and God working in her heart, He brought us together, and we embarked on a journey that has been fascinating ever since. That journey would take us from the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, where I did graduate training in counseling, and then on to England. So within 2 weeks of arriving in a foreign country, with a dream, no money, and 8 pieces of luggage, God asked Luann to join me in medical school. Luann had not had any science training at all, so how that actually came to be and how she could get into medical school without a college background, you'll have to read about in our forthcoming book. But we soon realized that God had blessed Luann with an incredible talent, brighter than me, so I acted as her tutor, and it was a real delight, but a real challenge for 5 years studying medicine together in a foreign country. Then God brought us back here to Pennsylvania to do our residency together for the next 3 to 4 years. Oddly enough, Luann and I had always dreamed of practicing medicine in a clinic attached to our house. It didn't seem like it probably would ever work out, but when God led us to this property in 2011, here we are practicing medicine in a renovated 100-year-old barn right next to our house built in 1825. So God has His ways. We chose the name Heritage when we started this office 4 years ago for several reasons. First, physicians are really aware of standing in a long historic tradition, a heritage of medicine, you might say. After all, medicine, along with law and clergy, is one of the 3 learned professions. There's a book on one of my shelves here called Behind the Doctor, and it talks about, as I practice medicine, or as a physician practices medicine, there's all of these people sort of standing behind you, looking over your shoulder. And even as I practice medicine today, I hear the voices of my teachers behind me, telling me, this is how you do it. It reminds me of the passage in Isaiah, this is the way, walk in it. So that was the first reason we chose the name Heritage. The second reason is a lot of our patients come from the conservative Mennonite, Anabaptist, Pennsylvania Dutch background, and that is Luann and my background. And who we are as people is really interconnected to that cultural and spiritual heritage, and we have a great deal of appreciation for that. So that's another reason for heritage. And I think another reason is, heritage, we tend to think about it being in the past, but heritage also projects a vision into the future when you think about it, and we seek to blend the past and the future together in a redemptive engagement with the present. Heritage Family Health is a full-spectrum family medicine office. We are physicians. What we do is medicine. However, we feel that what we do here is far more than medicine. We really feel that this is sacred space that God has given us to actually practice mission. So yes, medicine is our profession, it's our vocation, it's our calling, but it's really more a sense of mission. And because of that, many days I feel more like a pastor than I do a physician. So as we think about what it is that we stand for here at Heritage Family Health, what our core values, what our mission actually is, it actually springs from each of the letters of our name, Heritage. First, we stand for holistic care. Now, the word holistic can have so many misconceptions. I'm not talking about some sort of a new age mysticism where everything is spirit, but I'm talking about whole, I think as the scriptures would define how God has created us as whole beings. He's created us as physical beings, biological beings. That's where our study of medicine comes in, the understanding of the human body. But He's also created us as emotional or psychological beings. That's where my counseling training serves us well here in the office. He's also created us as social beings. We're products of our family, our church, our schools, our jobs, the communities we live in, the social aspect. And last but not least, we're created as spiritual beings, the heart, the soul. So the word that I like to use as I think about patience is a horrible word, but it sort of illustrates what we're talking about. The socio-spiritual approach to people. That's how we look at people here in this office. So when we talk about holistic care, that's what we're referring to. The second core value is excellence. A half-hearted job won't do, so we try to keep current with all of the medical nuances and retain our board certification in family medicine, which is what we mean when we talk about excellence. We want patients, when they come here, to feel that they are receiving excellent care. R is for rest. Ironically, when patients come to the doctor's office, they come at their most vulnerable states. Many times they're used to staring at stainless steel or polished white. We've chosen rather to surround them with the warmth of wood. Most of our patients are from the country, from the agricultural community, and we wanted to create an atmosphere that contributes to that rest. We've affectionately called this place the Doctor's Inn, as a pun on the Doctor's Inn, but inn in the colonial sense, because this is essentially a colonial property, an inn was a place where travelers could stop for rest and refreshment of body and soul. And in the same way that the Good Samaritan in Luke 10 took his wounded friend to an inn for healing, rest, and refreshment of body and soul, we seek to provide that same sort of restful alternative to modern society's hectic lifestyle. It really is ultimately about the rest that the book of Hebrews speaks about, and that the early church father Augustine said so eloquently when he said, God has made him for himself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in thee. It's really the rest that we envision here at Heritage Family Health. Integrity is a core value. To us, that means simplicity, honesty. Luann was once a first grade school teacher and learned how to make something complicated very simple. And we believe that no one is well served here at the office if they leave without understanding what has been said. T is really about trust. When I think about trust, I think about what in the historic medicine literature has been called the covenant of trust. The covenant of trust between physician and patient, which really works both ways. When the patient comes in, I have a trust that the patient is going to tell me, to the best of their ability, their presenting symptoms, but they also, in return, have the trust that I am going to then listen and prescribe the best course of treatment for them. Affordability is another core value. That's not to be confused with the cheapest. Our goal is not necessarily to be the cheapest, but it is to be affordable. And because of our direct pay or cash model here, we have a really good sense of pricing throughout the community where our patients can receive very good quality care in terms of referral and testing at a very affordable price. The scriptures instruct us to, in everything, give thanks. Gratitude is a core value. It seems that one of the distinguishing marks between a Christian and a non-Christian is someone who's grateful. And every day we do feel grateful for this space that God has given us to share with patients and to meet their needs. Every molecule that we breathe, every breath that we take, every heartbeat that beats, every day that we live is a gift from God. And we seek to practice medicine out of that sense of gratitude. And finally, empathy is a core value where we attempt to identify with our patients as we seek to walk together with them in their shoes. We frequently try to remind ourselves of the words of the 17th century English physician Thomas Sydenham, whose words hang on a plaque in our waiting area. And he says, "It becomes every person who purposes to give himself to the care of others seriously to consider the four following things. First, that he must one day give account to the supreme judge of all the lives entrusted to his care. Second, that all his skill and knowledge and energy, as they have been given him by God, so they should be exercised for his glory and the good of mankind, and not for mere gain or ambition. Third, let him reflect that he has undertaken the care of no mean creature, for in order that he may estimate the value, the greatness of the human race, the only begotten Son of God became himself a man, and thus ennobled it with his divine dignity, and far more than this, died to redeem it. And fourth, that the doctor, being himself a mortal human being, should be diligent and tender in relieving his suffering patients, inasmuch as he himself must one day be a like sufferer." The scripture that really guides what we do here at Heritage Family Health, and which really is Luann and my life motto, is the passage from Hebrews 12, verses 12 and 13. "Therefore lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed."